So Fox News, once again, has done a segment about why canceling student debt is bad. And they invited, of all people, Steve Forbes onto Fox News to talk about it. Now, who is Steve Forbes? So Steve Forbes is the chief editor, I believe, and CEO of Forbes magazine. May have gotten the title wrong, but he owns Forbes magazine, right? Or at least, a majority of it. He is a multimillionaire, and he also ran for president in 1996 and 2000. Now, some of the things that he ran on were lowering taxes to a flat rate of 17%, for instance. And, also letting people opt out of a Social Security tax. So you already see what type of guy this is. He's one of those small government, balance the budget types. And listen to his argument of why canceling student loans would be bad. And I'm going to break down to you afterwards why his argument makes no sense whatsoever. So let's watch.
Democrat Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez calling on her colleagues to pressure Joe Biden to wipe out student loan debt. It's $1.6 trillion worth through an executive order. But is that possible? And would that just push tuition rates even higher than they are? To former Republican presidential candidate and current Forbes media chairman, my good friend Steve Forbes. Steve, great to see you. Thank you for being here. Happy Thanksgiving Day weekend. I want to talk about the fairness issue of wiping out school debt first, because it's something that Democrats usually scream about is fairness, fairness, fairness. But Liz Warren, when she was on a campaign trail back in January, she went to Iowa. She was confronted by a working class American about the issue of school debt. Take a listen, and I want to get your reaction.
My daughter's getting out of school. I've saved all my money. She doesn't have any student loans. Am I going to get my money back? Of course not. So you're going to pay for people who didn't save any money, and those of us that did the right thing get screwed.
No, it's not anybody got screwed. When we started,
of course we did. My buddy had fun, bought a car, went on vacations. I saved my money. He made more than I did. But I worked a double shift, worked extra. My daughter's worksheet is 10. So you're laughing. Yeah, that's exactly what you're doing. We did the right thing, and we get screwed.
I appreciate
That's
it.
all right.
Wow, that's a lot of people think that might have cost her the nomination, Steve. There were other things, of course, but the fact that this guy and millions of other Americans worked their fingers to the bone, double shifts, saving, paying off their kids' school debt, and he says, am I going to get my money back? There is a fairness issue to all this, isn't there?
Yes, there is, David, and it makes people who paid their debts, took their obligations seriously, look like fools. And if they have this debt forgiveness of any kind of scale, you're going to have people wondering, why should I pay those obligations? Why should I take those extra jobs? Why should I sacrifice a private university to go to an in-state university to save money and honor my obligations? So you make a mockery of people who played by the rules. And this gets to the big issue, which is why are college tuitions rising at 4 times the rate of inflation, the sticker price? Why are they rising 8 times the cash wages of working Americans? It's because the universities are afflicted with bureaucratic obesity. The very government program studies have shown, David, that are supposedly helping students instead lead to higher tuitions. The universities get the money, they add administrative costs, and the students get stuck and their families get stuck with debt and in some cases grants, but with higher debts. So the universities get the money and the students get holding the bag. So you got to stop that corrupt gravy train of more and more and more money going to the universities and students getting stuck with the debt.
So he claims, number one, all right, there's so much here we can get into. So he claims that canceling student debt is, quote, disrespectful. Did he say disrespectful or a slap in the... Oh, yeah, it makes a mockery of people who did right with their money and paid for school. Now, just this alone is about the dumbest criticism that I've ever heard of making a reform. So, look, you might say, oh, well, people worked hard to pay for their student loans. Why should now everyone else get theirs wiped out? Well, I'm going to explain to you something, right? Okay, so let's take any other reform that was made in the United States and take his same statement, but takes, student loans out of it and put in something else. So Social Security payments is a slap in the face to all people who did not have Social Security and had to work until they died. Or how about food stamps? It's a slap in the face for people who actually pay for their own food. You follow me? Or how about building highways, a national highway system is a slap in the face to people who have to drive across the country and work hard to drive across without a national highway system. You get what I'm saying? Like, this is literally the stupidest logic ever. Because why should you say, oh, well, people worked hard to do this and they had to struggle to do this? Yes, exactly. They had to struggle to pay those student loans off. And they had to work extra hours and save a lot of money, when everybody else was, and like the one guy in the clip said, he worked double shifts since his daughter was 10 years old to pay for her college. Yes, exactly. And that's the problem. People like him should not have to do that. So what would you rather have? Oh, just everyone work double shifts to pay off college, or just have a bunch of debt? Or would you say, wait a minute, we can stop other people from having to work these double shifts so they can have more time with their kids and that they can have more flexibility with their money so they can do other things like, I don't know, buy a house or invest or, I don't know, consume so that people like Steve Forbes can continue to get more wealth. Like this argument makes no sense whatsoever because you could literally use that argument for any reform ever. Like, it's just such a simplistic concept. Like, I don't understand why people don't get that. Now, moving on. He says the real problem with student debt is not the debt. It's the fact that college tuition is rising, right? This is what he says. And he says that college tuition, has risen steadily, with these government programs that are introduced to help students, and they end up costing students more and costing taxpayers more. Okay, so once again, false. Oh, and he says the solution to this is to just stop giving money to colleges, basically, or to give less money to colleges. Once again, this is false. The government has been doing student loan programs for years and years and years, and tuition never went up. Do you know when tuition started going up? Tuition started going up when student loans were privatized. So the privatization of student loans, as well as the hyper focus on college education, is actually what's leading to this massive student debt. Now, yes, colleges do raise their tuition, and I do think there can be things that are done about that. Like, for instance, I think state colleges and universities should have more of a fixed tuition, and they should only raise it slightly, maybe based on inflation, or maybe by 3% every year, or 2%, or a small percentage, and not a large percentage so that people can pay it. The government could pay for everyone to go to public schools, for instance. Now, private schools, they can do whatever they want. They can charge whatever they want. But if the public schools are cheaper and more people are going to public schools, they're going to have to raise their tuition prices down by default. So, yes, there are things that we can do to regulate the cost of school and college. But people who went to school between 1998 and 2008 have the highest student loan. Their student loans are the highest in history. And mostly because of that stock market crash that happened in 2008, they were unable to pay their loans back. And they got a bunch of interest that compounded and they went into default. And they'll never be able to pay those off. So just for those group of people alone, we should absolutely forgive their debt, or at least, like Joe Biden has suggested, the first $50,000 of it. Now, do I think that all college everywhere should be free? Well, maybe not all college, but certainly the state colleges. And people think, oh, well, if college is free, it'll devalue the degree. Well, not necessarily. You see, with state colleges, you could argue, say, hey, it should be free for you if you're a member of that state, pretty much. And as a member of that state, you pay for it in taxes, So it's like your parents and you, if you work, a job through middle school, high school, have paid tax dollars that have went to funding these state universities. So as a reward for paying your taxes, you get to go for free. Like something like that would totally make sense, And like, once again, private colleges would be forced to lower their tuition if public colleges were free because they would be competing for a body of students. So there are a lot of ways, yes, we can regulate tuition. However, just saying, hey, it's bad because people paid a lot of money for college and they worked hard, and now other people are going to get this for free. It is literally, like I said, the dumbest argument I've ever heard. Like, imagine people saying that about the internet. Like, oh, well, you guys can get news at the snip of a button. That's not fair. I don't think we should allow that because I had to read newspapers and books for my information. Like, it's literally, that's the dumbest argument I've ever heard. Like, it's literally the stupidest argument you can make. You can make that argument against any reform, and if we let people like Steve Forbes run the country, nothing would get done. Wait. Actually, people like Steve Forbes do run the country. So this is why we are getting nothing done. So basically, Republicans, they do this all the time. They say the reform is bad, that the problem is articulated wrong. This is the actual problem, and the solution is to balance the budget, which is basically an effective way to say, okay, we can lower taxes because our budget is quote unquote balanced. Like, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Same soup warmed over. I didn't expect Fox to change. You shouldn't either. But just had to cover this, man. Like, these people must live in Idiotsville, I swear. Oh, and two, by the way, I felt the need to address this. He throws in that Elizabeth Warren clip and is like, oh, well, she's laughing at this man. He spent so much money and worked double shifts to pay for tuition. And she laughed at him. That's why she didn't win the election. A lot of people think she didn't win the election because of that. Yeah, loser. Are you kidding me? That is not why she lost the election. Not only is it not why she lost the election, no one thinks that. She just made that up. He just made that up. He just made that up. So, yes. Now, I do think Elizabeth Warren is incredibly smug. I think the way she handled the situation was not good. And a lot of you have been watching the citizen movement for a while. No, I don't really like Elizabeth Warren very much because I feel like she'll betray her principles if she thinks it'll get her votes or donations or whatever, And I think she's very, very, very hypocritical. And I think, she's not as bad as some people like Mayor Pete, for instance. But calling her a leftist and trying to put her in the same camp with like Bernie or AOC, to me, is a joke. That's my opinion. You can take it or leave it. But, I'm going to wrap this segment up because I can talk about this all day. So, if you like the video and you like our content here, please like the video, subscribe, turn on post notifications, and drop a comment or two. Also, my Instagram is in the description. You can follow us on Instagram at The Citizen Movement. And, yep, that's pretty much it. So, I'm out.